What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. We're here at episode 41. There are now 2 weeks left in the spring regular season of the LCS Challengers League, and we're just about to kick off the group stage of the second qualifier as well, as we inch closer and closer to the playoffs, as well as that coveted promotion tournament. We're also going to be hearing from CCG's mid laner Bradley, who has gone through a ton of different changes, both the team that he's on and the position he's playing, a little bit later on in this episode. But before we do that, gotta first start off with our groundskeeping and housekeeping, all that stuff. My name's Grapes. I'm joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
Grapes, I'm doing very well. It's been a hectic kind of day, but it's been a productive day, so I'm glad to be here. Except fuck the California DMV, I suppose, is the takeaway for everything. But we do have some good news, because later today we're gonna be doing our first OQ live stream on Salty Runback. And when I say live stream, I mean like we're gonna be live streaming the games, because we've got the Tier 3 Tonight match of the week on deck later today, and we got another matchup for you all tomorrow as well.
Yeah, we talked last week about having the opportunity to have community streams for the qualifiers, and we were graciously granted a spot for that. So we'll be covering qualifier games every single weekend at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. This Saturday, which is the day that you're watching this, if you're watching as the video has been released, we have, of course, our match of the week, as you said, with ISU versus Pulse, and we have Lotus versus Reluminate in Sunday's matchup, which I actually think could be a bit of an interesting one. The top side battling it out there, Crystal Shimmer against Porsche Odd Orange. That's where I'm looking at specifically.
Yeah, Reluminate definitely not a bad team, and I think even though Lotus, safe to say they're the favorites, that is one of the ones I would maybe have on upset watch, and I think a big part of the reason why Reluminate in particular are a big part of the reason why we might have Group D as being one of those more competitive groups. And also want to shout out all the other community streamers as well, because every single match of the qualifiers from here on out will be live streamed on a platform either on Salty Runback, Mad Magical, Running the Rift, the Salt Mine, or Aegis. That's all 5. On one of those 4 channels will be a matchup every single day. And in fact, 4 at the same time. So get your Twitch multis up, get them running, every single one, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You're not going to want to miss the live qualifier action. Of course, Grapes, we still have Tier 3 tonight as well. So on Thursday nights, you can get your Tier 3 fix with all the breakdowns, the content, all that fun stuff. But, yeah, that just means more Tier 3 content in the space.
Yeah, and now you get to watch the games live, which is going to be fun as well. But without further ado, let's get into those headlines here, Hawk, as not just the qualifiers happened, of course, over this past week. Let's start off in the NACL, where we had probably the most anticipated matchup of the entire season last Saturday. It was so exciting that Deserex put together another super heavyweight SmackDown, which they haven't done all year, and that's when you know shit's about to get real, with Maryville going up against FlyQuest challengers, and boy did it deliver. A 3-game series, back and forth. Maryville taking that game 1, but FlyQuest eventually coming away with it in 2-1 fashion. Hawk, what was your biggest takeaway from this series that kept FlyQuest undefeated?
I mean, what an exciting one. What a barn burner that was. FlyQuest, they emerged victorious. And I feel like there's 2 takeaways that anyone can have from this. One is that FlyQuest is invincible. Who's going to stop them? Not even Maryville could with their best effort. The other takeaway is, actually, there's 3 potential takeaways. That's one. The next potential takeaway is... The next potential takeaway is that, wow, FlyQuest is mortal. Teams can beat them. They dropped the game to Fear earlier in the season. Now they're dropping to Maryville. They have 3 losses in their record. Like, even though they're undefeated in series score, hey, they're not impossible to beat. And then finally, the third takeaway is maybe the marriage of the two, where, well, maybe Maryville is also just that goddamn good. And even though FlyQuest won the series, perhaps Maryville is also in that untouchable tier. Grapes, I am more inclined to the latter. I think that the takeaway from that series is that these 2 teams are just fucking better than the rest of the NACL. Supernova, I mean, arguably in the conversation in a good day, but... yeah, I don't think anybody else in the NACL, at least right now, can touch Maryville and FlyQuest. These 2 teams are just the best.
Yeah, I think, if anything, like this super legitimized Maryville as being at the top tier.
Yeah.
Maybe with the expectations coming into the season, I think people have always been looking at them as being like, hey, when are they going to fall off? When are they going to fall off? I don't think that's going to happen at this point. I think the biggest reason that they were so low in the standings originally is because we didn't know who their starting
Didn't know their
lineup was
roster.
going to be.
And then they were like,
once Yuji and
surprise,
came
Yuji
in-
Spirax, yeah.
Because remember, we came in with the expectation that like this Maryville lineup would have been Spirax playing top lane with like Iconic and Get Back in that order, and then with all of that being changed around, it's a very legit team. And I would have probably had them towards the middle of the pack, but the way that they're playing as a unit right now, they're right up there with FlyQuest and probably Supernova as well. The biggest takeaway I had from this weekend is that, holy shit, FlyQuest did it again. They found another random AD carry, and Sajed is that guy. The first
That's a pretty good takeaway, too.
The first 2 games specifically, he played really, really well. I mean, the game 3, that was a big jungle diff, I think. Shaden on the Jin Zhao had a phenomenal game. I think Quad played a great series all around. But, man, Sajed, just fits right in with the rest of those big names on that team because, you think of Surdy, Shaden, Quad, and Chime, all players who have had tier 1 or tier 1 or should have tier 1 experience or at that level of play and have been for years. And Sajed was just coming up from tier 2 or tier 3 where he was on lit for just like less than a year. And he is fully kind of on that same level, it seems, both like in the early game and also later on. And so I want to shout that out. I want to shout FlyQuest talent scouting out as well.
Yeah.
Just a really, really talented player. And, we could say that we saw him first, but he's looking even better than when he was on lit.
Yeah, Graves. I think it's safe to say that, it's not surprising necessarily considering that FlyQuest is one of the 2 orgs that kept their Challengers team, but I think they've joined the holy trinity of talent development alongside like 100 Thieves and Team Liquid at this point. 100 Thieves fucking frauds because they got rid of their entire pipeline and now they're not really doing it themselves. But they got Sniper and Bucio and Meech and they're cool. But I feel like those 3 teams right now are definitely up there, and FlyQuest with these fucking just like random ass 80 carries that they pull off the street. Like, I don't know, man. Like, no one watching the qualifiers in 2022 would have thought that Masu would play at the level that he was, and no one watching qualifiers last year would have said that Sajed would have been the next one up. I mean, I think, Grapes, I know you in particular, someone that watched like every qualifier game, said that Sajed definitely had those flashes of brilliance and, he could get to that level, but I don't think anyone had it on their bingo card of being there now. And here we are.
and it's the same thing with Masu from last year when they were on Team Pending, had those flashes being really good and was very solid throughout that entire season, but just being so new, we weren't expecting him to
he
be
was
able to keep
good,
that same level. And he did, and he honestly probably played at a higher level in the next year. And we're seeing the same thing here with Sajed, where team fighting was always really solid for him last year, but just the ability to take that and replicate it, if not exceed those expectations on an even higher level of play, very, very impressive stuff. And so that just means FlyQuest is just the most well-rounded team of all time. When we were talking about this team at the beginning of the season, the bot lane was maybe where we had our doubts or areas of hesitation. They are now obviously the top team in the league, but I don't think Maryville's too far behind them, which I guess is the general takeaway from this point.
Yeah, definitely. But Grapes, I don't really have anything else to add. FlyQuest, they're good. Maryville, they're good. These 2 teams, head and shoulders above the rest, but I do think the fact that FlyQuest is able to carry through their bot lane, definitely a great sign. We can maybe move on to our second headline at this point, where this is an interesting one, because at this point in the season, we've talked about Maryville, Fly, they're the clear top 2. Supernova, on a good day, they're kind of in that conversation. They're very clearly above the rest, I think it's fair to say, though. And then there's just like the thickest, chowdery soup you could possibly imagine. Campbell's Chunky, man, where nobody has more than 3 wins. Who's the 4th best team in the NACL?
Yeah, this is hard. Normally, I'm the one that,
I know, yeah.
I'm the one asking. You're the one answering first,
me,
so now
yeah.
I'm on the spot a little bit here. Just to go through the standings really quickly, it's Fear, TL, and Wildcard all with 3 wins, but Fear has 1 less loss, and then after that, it's AoE and Lit with 2, and Disguise and Mirage at the bottom with 1. I would push back a little bit and say I think Supernova kind of is in that top tier right now, where
I think they're very clearly above the rest.
They're very solid, and I guess they have already played their matchups against the likes of oh, hold on. Who do they not play just yet? I'm looking at the standings really quickly. They haven't played FlyQuest yet at the end, but they did play a series against Maryville, which was close. So you would imagine that's close, but I do agree. I do think it's the 3 and then the rest. And this is where it gets hard because Fear just got 2-0'd by Wildcard. I think a lot of people would have said Fear going into this week, but they did not look very solid. And Wildcard suddenly are looking pretty good alongside Team Liquid, who have just won 2 series in a row, albeit against maybe some weaker opponents. But one of them also including Fear. So actually, despite all of the expectations that Fear had at the start of the year and where they were just a couple of weeks ago, I say it's definitively not them. I think my argument would probably be towards Team Liquid right now, just because we've seen some more inconsistent play out of Wildcard recently, including that 2-0 to Lit, whereas TL on a 2-game win streak, including that win against Fear. Last week they dropped a game to Mirage, which is not great, but I think overall this team's looking more and more solid. I think specifically Roamer is having a great season right now, and so that is what my answer would be.
Very valid. It was so funny watching you struggle with this because
it's hard. It's a hard question.
Oh, I know, and I really put you on the spot. Now you know how I feel. First of all, second of all, it's funnier because I am going to take a complete cop out and say no team deserves my mantle of fourth best. No team deserves it. Like I could tell you, who's been playing the best the last couple of weeks and use recency bias, but I genuinely like when I watch the tape of these teams, which granted I've not caught every single game of NACL, but like when I see them play, I don't know, they all look equally like so average, and
yeah.
You know, the teams play so few games per week or even couple of weeks. It is really hard for me to say like, because Team Liquid's on a 2-game win streak and Fear's on a 2-game loss streak, that like TL's so much better than Fear. I mean, yeah, they look a little bit better right now, but that's why I say I think no team is deserving of that mantle of fourth best. And I know it's a cop-out answer, but I think it just goes to show like no one has separated themselves from the pack. And right now, it feels like unless something changes, we are going to have 3 that stand alone at the end of the season. And so I'm hoping that can change because, yeah, I think that is really my takeaway here is that just like no one deserves it and no one, I think, has earned it.
Yeah, I mean, right now, out of in a league where 8 out of the 10 teams clinch playoff spots, only 3 teams have clinched playoff spots, and those are the teams that we were talking about earlier: Maryville, FlyQuest, and Supernova. Fear at 4th place could still potentially drop into the promotion tournament if they end up losing out, and Mirage and Disguise each take 2 wins to end their year. Not saying that's super likely, but it is a possibility.
Mathematically possible
at this point. Mathematically, exactly. And so, and again, with the little sample size that we have, it is definitely hard to tell. And I think, yeah, I'm inclined to say it's not Fear, unfortunately. Although I do think they had a pretty good start. They play Maryville and Supernova over the next 2 weeks, and I think those are both gonna be difficult games. If they prove me wrong and end up taking 1 or 2 of those series, then obviously they're the 4th best team. But at this point, I think just given recent history, I would probably go Team Liquid. AoE maybe in that mix as well, although they did just lose a couple of series in a row. They were against some good teams, including a win against Supernova.
Yeah. If you were going to twist my arm, I'd probably say Wildcard. Probably.
Oh, okay.
But, like, I don't feel good about that.
It wasn't impressive. It was a very impressive 2-0.
Yeah, I just feel like Wildcard looks more solid as they know how to play the game better than some of the other teams, even if their players, I think, are not quite as good in some of their roles. So if you were to twist my arm, I'd say Wildcard. But, like, I don't know, bro. NACL is fucking...
It's crazy right now.
It's looking a little wild. It's the Wild West down there.
There are just 12 best-of-3s left in the regular season, which is kind of crazy to think of because, again, we haven't played too many games, but we're about to say goodbye to a couple of teams. We'll keep you guys posted as the regular season comes to a close. Let's talk about the qualifiers for a little bit now, though, Hawk, as before the games actually ended up playing, there was a lot of discourse and discussion about the selection process and how teams are picked for this qualifier. If you're not familiar, it's the top 24 out of the 32 teams are admitted based off of LP, and after that, the committee both picks the last 8 teams that submitted rosters to get in, and then ranks them 1 to 32 to get them seeded before the Swiss stage. Now, two interesting things happened. Well, I think the biggest thing that caused some of this discussion was the fact that there were a lot of very good teams in that group of 8 because of solo queue ranking not being as high, and B, because 2 teams dropped out after the voting process concluded. We had to vote in 2 other teams after the fact, and they slotted in at 31 and 32 respectively. Which caused for some wonky things to happen here, Hawk. And so my question, which I'm gonna let you tackle here right now, because I know you have a lot of thoughts, are with this selection process, what are the problems and what are some changes that you could make to make this situation a little bit more fair?
All right, Graves, I have a lot of thoughts. First of all, just for everyone out there, okay? Hawk soapbox for a minute. We did not get to pick where Misfits got seeded. They got into the tournament, and then they were automatically seeded at 32. You could flame us for picking Pick Me Galio all you want. I don't give a shit. But Misfits was at 32 was not our choice. They're lucky they got into the tournament, okay?
You can flame us for not selecting them in the first group of 8.
Although, No, you can't even flame us for that. I won't even take that. I stand by my first 8. I mean, you could disagree.
If you're going to criticize, that's what you should criticize us for, not for the fact that they were seeded last, the fact that we didn't select them in, which I would say, that's fair, but I still stand by my voting. It is that if you're going to criticize like us being wrong, that is where we were wrong.
Sure. For me, honestly, I would still not even take that. The team that performed the worst in that group of initial 8 was Colorado Boulder, and they were like, I mean, they went 1-4, but I thought they were like competitive. So I stand by it. And sorry, Misfits, but I wouldn't. If I were to do it again, I would vote the other different 8 teams in, like without knowing what I know now, right? I mean, maybe I would vote them in over Colorado. That's it.
If I knew what I knew now, obviously I'd vote them in. But because of the knowledge that we didn't, we get into that later. But
so anyway, you're a dum-dum if you're mad about Misfits. I'm sorry. The only thing I will take is like, oh, you shouldn't have voted in Pick Me Alio. Okay, whatever. XD, man. Like, another team we voted in would have gone probably out of the tournament as well. Also, Hawk soapbox for a minute. So this is before I even answer the question. I got business to stand on. Okay, look, I'm super down for committee discourse, and in particular when it comes to like my takes, I'm very open to like having conversations about that and explaining my logic. Okay, and I think that goes for pretty much anyone on the committee. But I get really annoyed when people like talk about flame the committee as a whole. Now, I think that it's imperfect, and that's why this headline exists, right? But there's a lot of like stupid discussion about the committee as well. The nature of Swiss is that seeds 26 to 11 are all 26 to 8. Seeds 8 to 26. So that's more than half the tournament. Seeds 8 to 26 are all expected to go within 1 win of each other. So if you're mad that XYZ team got seeded at 23 and then went 3-2, or XYZ team got seeded at 11 and went 2-3, that is Swiss working as intended. Because the other thing about Swiss is that for a team to go 8th place, another team has to go 26th place, right? So somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. Not every good team can get into the tournament. That is literally the point of playing the open qualifier. And whether or not you think Swiss is a bad tournament format is one thing. I'm not here to talk about that. But just like, keep that in mind when you're talking about like, oh, a team that got seeded 20th got in XD committee. That is literally it working as intended. That is a difference of 1 best of 1 separating that team that got in. And for that team to get in, a team in the top 6 team had to get knocked out. Okay, if seeding was the end-all be-all, then why do we play the fucking matches? And that's my business I needed to stand on. Okay, is like I'm super down to talk about like my decisions. And I think some things maybe a little stupid in hindsight, right? But like this is a committee. Now to answer the question at hand, I have 2 more things to say. I'm really just ranting here. 1. There are things to be changed, and I'll go into those in a minute, maybe after I let Grapes talk. But 2, I've seen a lot of discourse of should solo queue rank matter more? Should the teams only get into the tournament based off of solo queue rank? Should seeding be done off of solo queue rank? If you think that, you did not watch in 2022 spring, and you're dumb because it was much worse. Okay, that's my rant over. Graves, take the mic.
Yeah, lot to unpack there. I will agree with the fact that when you look at it at the end of the day, I think it's 7 through 25 are separated by 1 win. If you're doing the math correctly, which is basically what you said.
Yeah.
Which in theory means that when you get to round 5, it is somebody from 7 to 16 playing against somebody from 17 to 25 or something along those lines, and you play against
something
each
along
other.
Those lines, yeah.
Maybe it's 26 actually. Now I'm thinking about it. They play against each other regardless. Yeah. 26. Play against each other, and then it's a best of 1 at that point. So, best of 1s, as we know, are not necessarily the biggest indication of skill, like in a vacuum. So
there's an element of randomness.
Yeah. So if one thing happens or another, team makes it great. It is fair to say that seeding teams lower than they probably deserve causes chaos and maybe the possibility of them playing against harder opponents in other rounds that could give them losses instead of expected wins. I think that's fair to say. Sorry. The other thing, like on that note, as this is the points that we were talking about with like the people ranking things wrong. I agree. You should flame specific people if you think, well, maybe not flame, but you should criticize specific people's decisions if you think that like they were wrong or they were like messed up. I think the big thing is I think we've seen a lot of people flaming the committee for the way that the tournament is structured, and that's kind of the point. Like, we understand that there are flaws, and that's why we're talking about this. It's not like we can't do anything about it. Kind of, we're trying our best, as well as everybody else is at this point. Yeah. But yeah,
basically,
yeah. Go ahead.
Did you have anything else to add? Sorry,
No, you're good.
Basically, like, to sum up the whole rant and the discussion on this front, and then we can get into the question itself. Because again, like we do think there's things that could be changed. The committee system, I think, works given this tournament format. And I know it's not perfect, but I do think it works. And it works better than a lot of the alternatives that are going to be equally as frustrating, okay? And I'm down for the discourse about my decisions. Just, like, keep in mind that when you talk about, like, oh, the committee's broken, like, think for a second, okay, and about, like, what actually happened. And the only other thing I'll say is I know just win is a frustrating thing to hear for teams that went 2-3, but I'm being very serious. Like, if you can't beat teams in that seed 7 to seed 16 range, you do not deserve to make GSL. And so going 2-3, if you were like, oh, you could have been seeded at 15 instead of 20, if you couldn't beat teams in that range anyway, you probably didn't deserve to make it. So tough
or
shit.
At least deserve to win the tournament itself, which is like, or make it
right.
to the promotion tournament.
But
like there's never going to be a team that's screwed over from making promotion because of the way that they
right, exactly. So it's like, it's just tough shit. Just win, okay? If you're off by like 20 seeds, come talk to me. But otherwise, I think it's overblown a little bit.
When there was a team that was outseeded by 20 seeds.
DK Crew,
seed off a solo queue, which I guess is what gets us to this next
yeah,
point.
Exactly. See, no, but it's exactly that. So yeah. Okay, Graves, let's answer the question.
So the current system right now is a middle ground between the committee fully selecting all the teams and solo queue rank, because there is a way for you to qualify into the event just off of solo queue. However, I think that has caused a ton of problems that we can get into right now.
Yeah.
The first of which is the fact that subs are counted into the solo queue ranking of the teams, and basically the top 5 out of your 7 potential players are used in terms of like determining points to get into the tournament. What that causes is situations where you have teams that have 5 master tier players, which don't give you any points in terms of qualifying in, and then like 2 challenger players or something like that. And with that happening, it creates situations where those teams, which probably aren't deserving, especially if those challenger subs are not going to play, are let into the tournament, admitted into the tournament, over teams that maybe are right on that cusp or didn't make it in, but have played well competitively together and have players with a ton of competitive experience. The biggest reason for a team like Misfits not getting in is they're probably on that bubble of being like the ninth or 10th team that people would have voted for, but because we had to vote in teams like UCI, Team Fish Taco, among others that were outside of the solo queue range, because of some of these other teams likely, that is what causes these problems to pop up. And so there's no perfect solution, because if you see teams purely off of solo queue, you're going to get a problem there. If you see teams just off of the committee, it becomes much harder for less experienced teams with players with less experience to get into the tournament if they're high ranked in solo queue. And so I don't really know the solution. I'm just kind of laying out the problems, and if you have any
so I have ideas, and I don't know if this
is
a perfect solution, but I would like to see. So I see the argument that solo queue should be rewarded, and it is like a fairly unbiased metric, right? However, we've seen the issues that it can cause. So I would like to see solo queue devalued, but still rewarded for teams that really put in the solo queue effort. I don't think there's a way to attack the challenger sub problem in a way that makes sense, right? Like that problem specifically feels like it is just a side effect. What you can do is I would like to see only top 8 teams get in based off of solo queue. So that way, if you're super high elo, everyone on your team is challenger or whatever, you'll get into the tournament. We actually have very few full challenger teams in the open qualifier, if any, a lot of the time. So if everybody's high elo on your team, this is great. And this will also mean that a Masters team with 2 challenger subs will not automatically get in off of that. So that would be one change I would really like to see. And then going off of that, I really strongly feel that in the same way that championship points work, where if you retain a certain number of players from your roster from the previous tournament, and you make top 8, you make the knockout stage of the previous tournament, you should get an auto bid, as in you get into the tournament without having to be voted on. So that is potentially 16 teams that automatically make it into the tournament or less. And then everybody else gets voted on by the committee. Now, I know that puts a lot more in the committee's hands, but I'm going to be honest. I think when the committee selects the initial 8, they do a really, really good job. This is the only tournament that I've ever heard an issue with that. And I that was because the pool was too big, right? Or there was not enough slots. So with more slots and more teams to vote on, not to name drop some of these lower tier teams, but like, I guess I won't. Some of these lower tier teams that always kind of knock around in that 25 to 32 range, those bottom 8, they won't get in anymore. These teams would get voted in instead. So that's like my proposed solution.
Okay, I have a quick rebuttal to that point that you had here with the top 8 specifically. Out of every single team that we had to vote in or had the potential to vote in, none of them actually were in the top 8 last season, in the last qualifier. We had Team Fish Taco, who got knocked out early. We had Abandoned Kittens, who were in the stage and got knocked out early, and we had UCI that got knocked out early as well.
But there's more slots available to the other teams.
Yeah, so with that being said, that would mean now there's 16 slots to vote for, which would maybe give you a better opportunity. But I think the biggest thing is it gets rid of some of those lower tier teams that are getting boosted up maybe by those challenger subs. And honestly, like creating a world where solo queue is prioritized more would be great, because it would incentivize players to get on the ladder more. We would create more competitive solo queue games. I know solo queue is always a very interesting and hotly contested debate, and I've never been high elo enough to actually really fully comment about how the ladder is. But if there is a world potentially where people are fighting for the ability to make it into this tournament without having the risk of not getting voted in, I think it actually does provide an incentive, especially for newer teams, like maybe a team like Morningstar White, for instance, last year.
Yeah. Okay, last thing I'll say, we got to start speeding along here. We're already almost at 30 minutes, and we're only on headline 3. But last thing I'll say, I think, honestly, you could even open it up to, like, top 16 from the previous tournament only, though. I feel very strongly, players and teams change skill levels in amateur like that all the time.
Yeah.
So
And that would
only
only
previous
be-
tournament, but you have to retain a certain number of players. If you open it up to top 16, I think it would even still be fine because not everybody stays together. But yeah, I think some sort of auto bids to reward competitive experience. I think rewarding solo queue is good, but I think solo queue does not tell the whole story. And I think if you limit the number of teams that get in off of solo queue, it really rewards those that are actually like, high elo because only challengers high elo. And it limits the challenger sub issue. So that's my solution. Is it perfect? No. Something like that I think would be great. And I know this is a hot take, but maybe putting more responsibility in the selection committee's hands might actually be a good thing. I don't know. I think they would probably not fumble the bag too hard.
Sounds like a power-hungry guy right there for you. Let's move on.
Dude, hey, I don't want the power necessarily, but it's more work for us. But I think it would just be better. Okay, we got to speed along.
We got 2 more headlines. Let's get through them real quick. Out of the games that happened, some upsets did end up happening, compared to the seeding expectations. We had 3 teams from the top 16 not make it in. That is UCI, Abandoned Kittens, option 33. And 3 teams outside the top 16 make it in with Castleberry, Nameless, and Nigel's Last Tiles. So out of all those teams, or some of the other team here, Hawk, that we want to talk about here in this list, what team changed your expectations the most after this weekend of games?
Yeah. The obvious answers are the 3 teams that were not expected to make it and ended up making it in. I think my main ones are going to be... Oh, I also want to say, shout out Gentle Hearts. I said they'd be good, and I actually think after this week, this team is probably the closest to our top 6. That's my hot take. So, Gentle Hearts, they're real.
That's a good take.
Yeah. So, I got flamed by the committee for wanting to see them at 8, and here we are. Okay. Castleberry would be my answer. I know they're one of the obvious ones because they're outside, but I had this team, I think... Okay, I actually had them higher than the other 2, but I really did not think this team would be very good, and I'm very happy that they are. I think the Nameless probably just happy to be here. Nigel's maybe has a good shot as well. So Nigel's, Castleberry, probably my answers. To cap it off, Reluminate. I also think that this team is like real and could be very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, Topside played really well in the last OQ, and I think an upgrade in mid, conveying who has played at this level before. Maybe not to the highest extent. I don't think he's made a top 8 just yet in this event, but
did he never make one with Winthrop?
That he might have made one with Winthrop, although I'm not.
I honestly don't know.
Sure.
I don't know.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Either way, he definitely that team. I think him coming in definitely makes it an upgrade. Although that being around like the bottom of the top 16 is probably around where I had them initially, so I'm not super surprised to see them here. Team that changed my expectations the most. It's either Nigel's, because I think they played really well. They are really good at team fighting. They fell behind in a lot of their early games, but they were able to extend games out and play the late game better than a lot of other teams were able to. And like maybe like the weird niche answer is actually Winthrop, because they smashed through every single team that they played.
They're the favorites initially. They're the favorites again. Yeah.
So initially, we might have thought, okay, like maybe a team like Blue Otters is maybe better than them now, or Team Fish Taco with their new roster. We haven't fully seen CCG just yet, so I don't think we can comment on them right now. But outside of them, Winthrop very clearly looked like the best team, sweeping Ole Miss, just like destroying every single team that they played. That's like the other alternative answer you could have gone for.
Yeah, I agree. Just before we move on to the last headline, Lit went to top 8 to get 2-0'd by Maryville in the first tournament last year.
You're right.
Because then they had the revenge arc in group stage where they lost again.
You're right. My bad. My bad conveying. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure conveying made a top 8. He also never played a one for Winthrop.
Yeah. It was Avano. I think.
He subbed in for like one at one point, but yeah. So.
Our last headline before we head into our part 2 is about the qualifiers once again, and let's talk about what we think about the field overall as we have the 4 groups kind of unveiled right now. Which of these, out of the qualifiers, the first one and the second one, which one do you think is stronger in terms of the teams that we actually have in the event?
So this is a really interesting question. I think that the middle of the pack is about the same, where everyone somewhat competitive, couple teams maybe just happy to be here. But I think this tournament is very top heavy. Our top teams got stronger. Lotus is stronger. CCG should be stronger. TFT should be stronger. And then everybody else is going to be really good. Winthrop, Blue Otter, those teams. So I think, yes, it got stronger, but particularly because I think there is an overwhelming top 6 that I'd be very surprised if anyone's able to beat.
Yeah, I mean, you have probably the 3 best performing teams in the first qualifier, Blue Otter, Winthrop, and Ole Miss, kind of keeping their rosters together, and then you had the upgrades in the other 3 that as you alluded to. So that combined with both Gentle Hearts and Polestar making roster changes that could be considered as upgrades.
That's
Fly
true too.
Family becoming a very interesting team here as well, where the early game isn't great, but if you get BMFX on a carry, he will be able to win the game for you basically by himself after 30 minutes, as well as some other like wild cards that are thrown in there as well. I think probably, yeah, seeding has gotten a little bit stronger. I mean, just if you think about one maybe anecdotal example, for instance, in Group B last year, you had Gentle Hearts, Aporia, and Winthrop in the same group. I think a lot of people probably would have thought, oh yeah, like Gentle Hearts is kind of in there, but like they looked very bad in a lot of the games that they ended up playing, albeit it was against the 2 eventual finalists. That same group that Gentle Hearts is in now, like that 3rd team in is potentially FlyFam, and now I think they look much better than like what a Gentle Hearts could be. I feel more confident about some of the teams at the top than I did last year. Like,
Yeah.
and even towards the bottom, you have as the 4 seeds, you have a team like Nigel's, who again I may be a little bit higher on than most, and then also BlackRock, who even though they did lose some of their players, had a very impressive showing. I think the mid jungle obviously is going to take a hit, but Sushi looked very, very solid, as some people were kind of telling, or some people were saying before the tournament, and now that was proven with that crazy Vayne in the game 5 that they had against Clown.
That was pretty pog.
Yeah. So BlackRock, you know, like compared to some of the other 4 seeds that we had, although now that I think of it, one of the 4 seeds we had last tournament was ISU. I may be a little bit more excited about some of these teams coming in.
Yeah. I have nothing else to add. We've already gone pretty long, but I definitely think this tournament looking strong. I think in particular Grapes, because of how strong our top 6 is, I think the group stage will still be exciting. Maybe less exciting than last tournament, but top 8 should be a banger. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
There's 2 groups. We talked about this on tier 3 tonight, but there are going to be 2 groups that we have our eyes on in terms of having interesting group stage matches, in terms of getting into the quarterfinals. And one of them will be on our Twitch channel tonight, as this episode comes out, with Polestar taking on ISU. So make sure you tune into that on twitch.tv/Salty Runback Pod. Hawk and I will be there casting together for the first time all season, except, oh wait, no, we did see Los Central one time, but first qualifier game of the season.
First match that's not UST beating Dukes' cheeks, you know. Yeah. I guess we can do a quick outro from here as well, since we got the interview with Bradley next. Make sure to stay tuned. That's going to be something that Grapes went ahead and did. Very cool to sit down with a player with so much of a story in the scene. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media at Salty Runback Pod as well. And stick around for part 2. Stick around for the stream tonight on Salty Runback. And stick around for all of the awesome qualifiers action. We got still some great things coming. I've been Hawk. That's been Grapes. Have a great night.
I'm here with Bradley, the mid laner, now for CCG Esports, as he is about to embark on his first competitive event of 2024. Bradley, first of all, thank you for taking the time to speak to me. And second of all, I heard you had a pretty wild travel plan over the last couple of days. You want to relay kind of what exactly you've been up to get to where you're sitting right now?
Yeah. I mean, I was going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to compete in OQs, and then that kind of led to, once I finally made my decision, I had like a week and a half left before I was ready to like travel back to the US. It's kind of a like last minute decision. And then, let's see, I flew from Korea to LAX. I did that 2 days ago on the 28th. And then I flew in on the 29th here in Mankato, Minnesota, and I landed in like the 1st in the morning. I stayed up 14 hours since my flight from Korea to land. I stayed up 14 hours. I had my flight here. I slept like 2 hours on the plane, and I've been up ever since.
Oh, wow.
I flew from Korea to here to sleeping for like 2 hours-ish, and then like Yeah, I'm a little jet lagged, but it's all good.
I mean, it happens. You have all those flights in a row, and I mean, I guess you're coming back so quickly because you're getting ready to play. I guess for this weekend, was that kind of the plans
Yeah.
around the travel in order to make sure you get to the games on time?
Yeah, actually, funny enough, so I was actually gonna come back on the 2nd of March, tomorrow, but my mom wanted to see me compete so bad that she convinced me to get an earlier ticket, even if it was like a little bit more expensive, just to see me compete.
Oh wow!
So
All right.
that's why I'm here. Yeah.
Well, now you have the live games happening here for this OQ, so you'll have more fans being able to watch you at home. So that's awesome, and
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully that all goes well over on Sunday. But Bradley, before we start talking about this new team and where you've been, I want to go kind of all the way back. Let's start like kind of as you were growing up and things like that. I mean, you're like when you really think about it in the long term, like being a professional League of Legends player, playing video games for a living, like that's kind of a crazy journey that you've been a part of. But I guess starting all the way when you were younger, like um, were you a big gamer playing just like anything
So
you wanted to growing up, or was it just League that really got you hooked?
yeah, so I'm actually pretty lucky. My oldest brother who first got me into League. I started when I was like 10 years old, and he was kind of the first one to kind of get my mom to understand like the gamer world, if you would call it, right?
Yeah.
Kind of how everything works. No, like I didn't have to tell my mom like I can't pause it. Like she already knew, right? Like that was pretty that was
So
pretty
he already
lucky,
got
you
that
know?
out of the way for you. When
He already kind of taught her how things work, and interestingly enough, he actually started to bring the whole family into games, and my mom and my whole family kind of became gamers themselves. Like the one of the first games we all played together was like Clash of Clans. We did clan wars together as like a family, and it evolved into Hearthstone together as a family. We used to sit around Christmas and like on the big screen on TV, we would all watch like each other do pack openings. And anytime someone like hovered over the card and it was all yellow, everyone would get so happy and shit like that. So my family has always been like a gamer family, right? And even now, my mom plays classic WoW. And she used to be in one of the best guilds in our server. Like she's actually like a true gamer. She would do like the she would do like the pre-raid like meetings where you would go for like 4 to 5 hours on what everyone's gonna do in what order. You know, like the clan leader or whatever would like talk to everyone, tell them like this is what you're gonna do, and then like come to the actual raid, like the 12-hour day raid. She literally sat there through all of it. Like she's a gamer like to herself now. So like growing up, I'm pretty lucky that I have an understanding family of how everything works, and yeah, because my mom is it's like very easy for her to be supportive, because like when I communicate with her, it's very easy for her to like understand what I'm doing just by growing up this way. So
So do you use like gamer terms when you're like talking with your parents and stuff like that? Because I know League of Legends players always have that stereotype of like not speaking correct English and things like that. Does that happen when you're talking to mom and dad?
well, okay, so like yes and no. I can't use like league specific terminology because she doesn't play league.
Right.
Like a lot of like the league terminology that people say is like a bit like too league close. Like she wouldn't even understand even if I said it. Like if I told her I was like fucking like cancer like piss chilling on dinner, like she'd be like, what the fuck are you even saying? But like
Okay, so
if
you
I
have to go
said
that
but
far.
but if I said this dinner's like OP, I've never said it before, right? But just as an example, she would understand. She'd be like, oh, thanks.
That is crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I mean, I've never said that. You know,
Right.
like I mean, we don't really like. Even though she's like a gamer, we don't really talk like that. I don't know. Never have, but
I feel like
she would understand.
I feel like my parents are supportive enough, but also like I cook them in Mario Kart every single time we play, you know? So it's like it seems like they're a little bit more separated than you are, which I think is actually a really cool situation. Do you think that that approval is kind of what has helped you? Do you think that's helped you as your journey as a pro has kind of developed over the last couple of years?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't deny that like having your parents' approval or like like support and any like path you choose like will just be helpful automatically no matter what it is, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm really grateful for that. At the same time though, I would like to think of myself as like a very like strong-willed individual. Like even though like let's say I love my parents and they support me. Like even if they didn't, I still think I would be where I am because I'm pretty strong-willed. But to have it nonetheless is a blessing. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I guess talking a little bit more about League of Legends specifically, like, first question, I guess, like, what season did you start? And then I was wondering if there's a moment where you like were playing or something, and you truly, and then you like thought to yourself, like, wow, I'm like good at this. Like, I could do something with like playing video games like for a living.
So I started playing in season 1 actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 10 years old, and I watched my brother play. Like back then, it was like the really old Twisted Tree line with like the dragon instead of Fireball. It was like the dragon and the red buff map.
Wow.
So I watched him play that, and then what's interesting enough too is that not only did I watch him, so he actually had a kid pretty early on, but my nephew would watch him as well. My nephew was 6 years old at the time. We both got into league. He got into league at 6 years old, and
That's
we both would
crazy.
play. Yeah, we both would play together. And what's really cool is like back then, right? Season 1, you earned XP through custom games, and the way I got level 30 was I would 1v1 my nephew on what's it called? The Scar? It's not called King of the Scar. It's
Crystal-
called
Crystal Scar, that's
Crystal
called?
Scar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would 1v1 him on Crystal Scar, and then that's how I eventually got level 30. Right?
Wow.
But then
so you're beating up on a 6-year-old the entire
Yeah.
on your grind to play
Yeah.
ranked. Did that help you when you first started playing ranked, or were you like a little rusty?
Absolutely not. I placed like bronze 3. It wasn't very good. Before I go into like the moment where like
Yeah.
I thought I could do something, I just want to share like a really funny moment that
Okay.
I just got reminded of. So I remember back in the Crystal Scar, I remember because like every like it's a really popular question to ask, like, oh, like what was your like noob moment of League, like when you first started learning?
Yeah.
Mine, I remembered there was so I had no concept of items, right? And I remember one time where we were 1v1ing and he was playing Ashe. Like I remember this very specifically. And then I saw him attacking really fast. He bought Phantom Dancer. And I was like, what the fuck? You're attacking so fast. How are you doing that? And he was like, I don't know. I just bought this item. And then my mind like literally just like exploded. I was like, holy shit. Like items like do stuff. So yeah.
Yeah.
That was like a noob moment. But
Yeah, my
yeah.
first league game ever, I played an intro bot game with my friend. I was playing Jinx, and I was up against like a like I don't know, like a Braum bot or something. I noticed like they have so much more health than me, and I'm like continuing to die all the time so quickly. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy health so I can be strong. So my first ever bot game, I was playing Jinx, and I had a Randman's Omen and a Kindle Gem. That was my full build. So
that's pretty good.
talk about talk about pro players building bad. They couldn't get as bad as me, So
I hope not. I mean, I think if I saw a pro player build that, that'd probably be another like I'd see another YouTube video on win trading
yeah.
recently.
No, for real.
But yeah, to answer your other question though about like when did I finally think I could do something with it? I think it was around season 9. I first hit Challenger in season 8. I used to be a Vladimir one trick. On how I first hit Challenger in season 8, but then I decided that I wanted to be Challenger without being a one trick. So I stopped being a Vlad one trick, and in season 9 I started to branch out the champion pool, and then I maintained Challenger in season 9. And that's when I kind of like was like, like I'm maintaining Challenger. I mean, I don't necessarily think I was that good, but I was at a point where I started to consider it because I had played League for fun up until season 9. Like I played purely for fun. I didn't care about going pro. I was a competitive person, so obviously I was trying to get high rank, but it was never to like go professional. I did watch LCS, and like I used to watch all the way back as far as Moscow 5. Like I remember watching those guys compete with like Alex Fish and shit, like AP Master E. Like those were the good days, right? But like I don't know, I never really saw it and decided to go pro until I thought I could do it myself in season 9. I guess I'm a little bit more of like a realist person. And then and seeing that I was like, oh shit, like let's see how far I can go. And then yeah, now we're here.
That I feel like sometimes like there are players that will play for like a year and then immediately kind of just jump into tryouts, and then somebody like you's been kind of competing for like 9 years on the ladder, and then you finally decide to kind of like maybe take it a little bit more seriously. But you talked about kind of that doubt and hesitation. Was that kind of part of the reason why you decided to maybe join a collegiate program when you first started after high school, or was that kind of a decision that your family was a part of, or what brought you to Bethany Lutheran College back in 2020 when you first joined?
So I actually when I graduated high school, my mom, she's very supportive, but she was like, I want you to go to college, right? And I was like, okay, that's fair. Like, I'm very fortunate, and like she's able to like help me with tuition and stuff like that, right? Like my parents, so very fortunate in that regard. But at the same time, I didn't want to give up on League. Like I grew up playing League, like kind of like as a young child, starting from 10, like I'm like 18 at the time.
Yeah.
18. So I've been playing League for like 8 years, kind of formed an attachment with the game. I was like, I don't want to just like give up League. So I decided that I wanted to try to find a scholarship for League. And then, so I don't know if you remember, I used to play on a roster called LGN. And the roster was Philip, Hunter, me, Meech, and Trevor.
I do remember that roster. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
What a throwback.
So Hunter from that roster went to Bethany. So he was the one that was like, yo, like if you want to come to school, like I'm going to the school. Like you can see what's up, like see if you like it. I was like, all right, I'm down. And then I found myself at Bethany.
Yeah, that's cool. And I mean, I assume you made a pretty good connection with all the people there because, I mean, I don't know if we want to reveal this right now, but you said you're in Minnesota because you're kind of around the Bethany boys right now, right? After you came back.
Yeah. So I'm with them right now. Yeah, I came back because I decided if I'm gonna compete in NACL like later on in OQs right now, like I want to give myself the best possible chance. So the lower the ping, the better. So I'm living here. It's very nice. I kind of made friends along the way when I was here at Bethany. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Do you feel like because I know there's a lot of conversation about collegiate being that like path to pro, and like people argue like, oh, like we should be investing more in the collegiate space versus like the semi-pro space. I just was wondering like your take on that because you spent a year at Bethany and then you eventually moved on to other endeavors over the last couple of seasons. So now that you're back here in a collegiate environment again, looking around, like what are your thoughts about kind of that being such a hotly debated topic?
Okay, so I want to preface this by saying I don't mean any harm, but I do want to speak my truth because I don't know. I think it's important. I see a lot of. I don't want to call it copium, but I see a lot of like. We'll just call it copium right now. Like on Twitter, where people will be like collegiate, like the pathway to pro, right? They want collegiate to be the pathway to pro, and I agree. I think it could be a pathway to pro, but I think that right now it is too behind to be a pathway to pro because like it's too hard. It's not like too hard, right? But compared to the people who are fortunate enough to have their whole day to kind of get better and grind the game, naturally it's going to be a lot harder to compete with people when you're in class and you have to focus on studies, right?
Yeah.
And I think the whole NA ecosystem as a whole, I feel like coaches aren't useless, but a lot of the times that I think when you get to the really high levels of like collegiate, I feel like a lot of the players are not self-taught, but they know a lot of the things that their coaches are telling them, and that doesn't mean their coach is useless. It just means that to make the leap from a challenger player or like a collegiate challenger player that's competitive in C-Law to like an academy player, right? I'll just say academy because like the system's kind of weird now.
Yeah.
So I'll just like refer to it like 2 or a year ago to like when it was academy. To go from that to academy is a really big leap, and a lot of the times when players did make that leap, I always thought of collegiate as a space to like help set you up for it, but not like help you get there. I don't mean that to be mean or like say like collegiate is like the staff or whoever's useless, because they're all really nice people and I really enjoy being around them. I just think that collegiate for me, my approach to collegiate was, especially why I chose Minnesota, was like, okay, well, like Hunter's going here also, but it's low ping. I know the esports room, the computer's very nice, so if I play there, like, it's going to be better for me in the long run, right?
Yeah.
And like, I also do think that's why like obviously Maryville's a top school, but like you can't ignore that fact as well, right? They have the top of the art, kind of institution, if you will, like call it, for their program. and I think it definitely helps them with results. Obviously, their players are really good. Shout out to my boy Yuji, but
True.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's really helpful for their players, and I think that given a few years, it can be like maybe a reliable pathway to pro. But I don't want people to look at collegiate and have the hope because maybe they saw me or Yuji or Niles or Iconic or Spirax, right? And be like, oh, I can do it too, because it's not the most useful in terms of like actual productiveness and like reliability, I would say, to go pro.
Right.
So yeah,
I feel
that's
like
my take on it.
I feel like right now it's kind of in a spot where if you want to get an education and also like use that skill that you have of playing video games to like both get
Yeah.
you a scholarship and then also just get you like a lot of these cool opportunities, I think it's right now like the perfect spot for it. And then
Yeah,
you
I
see
agree.
other more competitive schools like maybe SLU or Wild or Maryville now like I guess being a little bit more competitive, and I think that's great. But I think I think I agree with you. Where like there will be two avenues to kind of go, and I guess you ended up kind of hopping from one to the other as after 2021 decided you went to Wildcard. You had a great season there. You don't have to talk too much about that because it was a while ago. But I mean,
Yeah.
I was wondering if you did have any like specific memories or just want to talk about the experience of like playing with a bunch of really experienced veterans. You got Dokla and you got Arrow on that team. Like if
Yeah.
feel free.
Yeah. No, I mean that team I'll always be really grateful for. I was really happy to be a part of that team. Because that was like my first real. Because like I played on LGBN, right? But like back then it was like a bit weird with how everything was. Like we weren't really known or anything. I would say we were good, but we weren't like necessarily like that good or anything. Like we did fine, we did okay. But the wild cards what really put me to like a pedestal for everyone to like look at. So I was really grateful for that. I really loved working with like everyone. I'm happy I got to work with like Dokla, Winnie, Arrow, Brandini, Daphne. I'm really happy I got to work with all of them. Any fun memories with the team? I mean, I think it would probably come from. So I got to meet. It doesn't necessarily come from like a team itself, but when I was on the roster, I went to LA by chance. Like I was just meeting up with some friends, and Arrow lived in LA. Like he was in LA at the time, and
Oh,
I
wow.
went over and I met him for the first time, and like we were like hanging out. And he showed me Overcooked for the first time, and this guy was
Oh,
just
wow.
griefing me so hard. But it was just like one of those moments with like the boys. So
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
it's pretty fun.
getting that
to do it, like, in
experience
IRL
to
too, yeah.
just like meet one of your teammates like that is it must be great. And hey, you guys ended up playing together again like last year, so
Yep.
that connection kind of just goes all throughout. But I guess after 2021, that was a big year for you, right? You made top 4 with CLOL. You
Yeah.
were with Wildcard. You won all these tournaments, and it seemed like you were like very primed to maybe make that jump into the academy space, and you did. Although it was
Yeah.
as a top laner instead of a mid laner, which was a position that you were playing for the majority of your competitive career. How early in that off season did you decide to do that role swap? Because I know it's a very big like jumping off point and a very big decision that you're gonna have to make going into your career.
Yeah. So I actually didn't like. Okay, I made the decision, right? But I wasn't. Like going into it. Going into like the off season, I wasn't planning on being a top laner. It was after scouting grounds that Team Liquid spawned specifically because like how it worked was like I'm pretty sure each team like Mountain whatever like I just remember I was on Mountain like Cloud Ocean whatever they got assigned like 3 academy teams roughly to like kind of like all right, you get to watch this team, you get to watch this team. And I remember TL, they were watching our team, and Spawn was like watching our games, and he reached out to me and he was like, "Have you ever considered role swapping top?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." And he was like, I mean, he basically said, "I really like you as a player, but like I don't want to like get rid of Harry. I think Harry's really good." And I was like, "Yeah, I agree. Harry is really good." And then so. Yeah, I had that, and then I had CLG and like a couple of other ones. The CLG was for mid, right? And I basically was just like, kind of deciding what I wanted to do. And yeah, I just ended up going with top lane. But I originally wasn't planning on doing it. It was only because he asked me.
So that decision, I guess, to play with Team Liquid as a top laner versus being with like another team as a mid laner, for instance, still in academy, I'm assuming, was that just because of the fact that you thought that this TL group was really good, you thought we could win a lot, and or was it also like kind of the mindset of, maybe if I go into this new role, play really well, like maybe that position is less competitive than the mid lane role where there's a lot of really, really talented players?
It was a lot of everything. I'll break through like just a couple of like key points that I had, and I remember thinking at the time. One was that mid lane was really stacked at the time, and like top was really weak at the time. So I thought that that might be good for me. The second was that I really liked Team Liquid as an org, just like as an org, like regardless of the players, regardless of the staff. Growing up and like watching, I always felt like the goats came out of Team Liquid, like Double Lift and like other like really like well-known players. I always thought that they came from Team Liquid, and they were like definitely my favorite org in general. So that definitely had like a little bit of influence as to why. But like regardless of that, I just thought that top lane was weak. I really liked TL. And I really like looking into TL further. Like the players were really good. I think the players in CLG were really good as well because like Dokka was going to CLG as well.
Yeah.
It's like that could have been cool. But yeah, ultimately I just decided that I think I could do good in top lane. So I was like, fuck it, let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, what's it like kind of swapping over to a position on top of kind of playing now in a higher tier league? I mean, I know you had a lot of very strong teammates and a really great staff behind you, but was it like a difficult process? Because I know, it definitely sounds very, very difficult. I mean, it's a very different position, even though, there are some similarities.
Yeah, so I do think that it is a lot more difficult than I originally thought it would be. But I will say, it's a bit weird because I definitely like. I was very thankful to have the roster that I have because without it, I don't think I would have came the way as I did as a player. I definitely like. I think I'll be the first to say like I was pretty bad going into it at first. Like I remember I was just inting scrims like straight up. Like the first month of me playing as a top laner, I remember like just our vows was like, oh god, like what is going on here?
Why did we bring this guy in?
Like I maybe wasn't going like 0-10, right? But like I wasn't doing the best, so like I had to kind of like find myself and kind of like because I'm literally starting from square one. I've never played the role before, like in that kind of like unless I'm literally auto-filled is when I would play the role.
Okay.
So kind of had to start from square one at like an academy baseline. So it's definitely a lot harder than I thought. But I am very thankful that I was surrounded by such good players, and I felt like I was able to learn a lot faster thanks to them because they already knew coming from like Bob Jenkins what like a top laner at least from like a base standard should do and like how they should think even if they didn't even play the role themselves.
Yeah.
Because they're just used to the scene, right? So yeah. And then I went from there and yeah.
Well, I guess the elephant in the room now is that you're coming back to OQs as a mid laner. In your LFT post, you had a lot of mid lane games in solo queue over in Korea.
Yeah.
What was kind of the thought process there and kind of coming back to that position and deciding to give it another go back in Tier 3?
So, I think when I was even though when I was a pro player in Team Liquid, like still playing like top lane, like for the academy team,
Yeah.
I would still play mid lane every now and then because, like even though I'd role swapped, like I've always been the kind of person to kind of I like to play a lot of roles every now and then. Sometimes it'll be like ADC for fun, sometimes it'll be jungle for fun or support. But I always like kept mid lane. The few champions that I really liked, I would still like play them every now and then. Because I do personally enjoy the role a lot more. I just think that it has more impact on average, and that it just works better with who I am as a person. And so going into this off season, I was confident that my mid lane is still at a fine level, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, now is the perfect time to. Because I want to compete in this next NACL, right? I took this NACL off to go to Korea and kind of better myself as a player, both for mid and top. and then I decided to come back, and I was like, well, what if I took this time right now in OQs to see where I'm at as a mid laner? Because it has been a bit. It's been 2 years. So I kind of wanted to take this time and see where I'm at as a mid laner and see if things go really well, maybe I'll stick with mid, and if they don't, I'm still down to go top lane. Like, it really just depends. Like, I'm pretty flexible right now. I'm happy to do both, and it kind of just depends on how I do no Qs.
So we're not hitting like the immediate regret button, like I just wasted my last 2 years or anything. You're
No,
still
no,
very,
no,
very
no.
flexible in terms
If
of like, what you want to
anything,
do.
If anything, I think it made me a better player overall, which kind of is a weird answer because
No, I think that makes sense.
yeah, I mean, ideally you would just want someone who just sticks with their role overall. But I think that the experience that I learned from playing it, even if I do decide not to stick with it, has made me a better player, and just given me more knowledge about the game. So even if it turns out that I don't stick with it, or I do, I think it's fine. Which, like I said, obviously maybe isn't ideal because, like, as far as growth goes, it may take a little bit longer for growth. But I have always been a person to right now, right? It's not a matter of if, but when. At the same time, though, I don't want to be delusional. I'm not planning on going LCS if I'm like 35 years old, right?
Yeah, no, that's
But I still am fairly young. I mean, I'm 22. For at least North American standards, like in Korea, they literally told me I actually tried to like see what my options were at tier 3.
Yeah.
And tier 2, tier 3, and LS said like, bro, you're too old. Like even Tenacity was too old, and I was like, oh god.
Yeah, you gotta be reckless in order to get a chance there, basically.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, so yeah, I don't want to be delusional. I don't plan on doing it for like super long, but at least while I'm young, I still have time. It's not a matter of if, but when. Is my approach. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. If you don't mind, we can go back and talk about your time with Team Liquid a little bit because it was a very successful time for you as a player. I mean, in 2022, you won back-to-back Proving Grounds. Like, you were kind of that new face on a team that like already was super built and together, and eventually like everything kind of slotted right in. You guys went kind of all the way both times. With all the success you had on Wild Card and then like the back-to-back championships in 2022. You guys won. You've basically like were undefeated as like a pro almost, where you were just like dominating at the top of your the top of your whatever league you were in. Like, do you think that helped you, hurt you, or do you even think about that at all?
I would say it helped and hurt me, but not for reasons that a majority of people would understand.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I have this conversation with even some of my friends in the league, but I actually feel like I've become a much better player at the end of my second year than at the end of my first year. And it's weird because obviously like I won both splits in the end of my first year, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people look at success as like you get first place, and then like unfortunately, like that is just kind of how it is. Like I think that my rating as a top laner shot up significantly just because of the player around me. It had nothing to do with me, right? And I'm sure like a decent amount of people could see that. But I think the important part was actually that when I did lose those players that were like really good, and I had to learn the game in a different way, I do ultimately think that even though I didn't garnish the same results, that I really did become a better player. If you look at my first year as a Team Liquid Academy top laner, because I had such strong laners and like around the jungle, my champion pool was literally Gangplank, Fiora, Jace, Graves. Like I played strong side champions because all I needed to do was win lane. My team, like, you know what I mean? Like if I won lane as like the weakest player on the team, like the game's just over. Like it's just free. Like my boys won't let me down. You know what I mean? So all I had to do is win lane. And then my second year as a player, I realized that like sometimes you have to do more because that style is like it's kind of selfish in a sense where like even though I might be performing well in these champs, sometimes your team needs you to be something else. And I think that I learned, especially like watching a lot of like rookie top laners going to LCS, that unfortunately for top lane, if it's something that you're trying to go pro in, you need to be able to play some like some weak side champions, and you need to be at a point where you can go into the 20-minute mark, get like no help, no resources, and be a strong boulder for your team. So, going into like my second year, you'll notice the shift in chances as I was playing. Like like on my game of Legends played, my top three were like Scion and Kaysante. There's a Kennen in there as well, right? So, like that was just never changed, but like it shifted a lot in terms of like my mindset as a player and what I needed to do to yield the best results. And even though it didn't get me at first place, I always thought in my head, I'm doing the things now because I know how to do them instead of my first year, my teammates telling me that I should do them. And I felt like it really helped me as a player, even though that isn't really shown, right? So it helped and hurt me, I think. I do think it made me a better player, but it also kind of hurts the narrative because you get a lot of... It's like good and bad. You get a lot of praise unjustly just because you have good players. And like not to like discredit myself, I think I did fine, right? But then going into the second year, I guess like that kind of like your last year's precedent is still like carried over with you. So now you're expected like to do the same, right? And now I'm kind of learning the game in a different way. And I mean, I feel like obviously, like I've kind of said, I feel like I truly did become a better player, even if the results didn't yield it. So for better or for worse, I mean, I wouldn't change what happened. I'm very grateful that I role swapped. I'm very happy to meet the people that I met. And if anything, like I do think it made me a better player overall. So it's just my goal proving or going forward that it's my time to prove it that it made me a better player. So
yeah, I guess comparing that like 2022 roster to 2023, where it was like all like stacked players, best enrolled, maybe 2022 or 2023. You had some newer pieces, you had like APA and Kim Down coming in, but then you also had the veterans like Mir and Arrow. Did you feel like that was a more conducive environment to like growing and learning compared to just like winning all the time, or was it something else was it just the fact that the team wasn't as successful, or was it having those vets and having some of those younger pieces that also helped your growth?
I think I learned equal amounts, I would say. I think the first year, even though I had really strong players, I think I learned how to play at an academy level. And then my second year was learning how to like perform at a top level, at an academy level, which I think is fair to say. Like I think, kind of like my first year, even though like I had strong pieces, kind of like them helping me learn how to play in a sense, like learning what I need to do in X scenario, and like they help me every now and then. Hey, come here. I'm like, oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
And then going to the second year, like I know that I need to be on my own. It's like I feel like I learned just as much my first year as I did my second year.
Yeah, I forgot you played with Bjergsen for like 2 weeks, right? Back in the
start
of the year. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And,
what was that like?
I played an LCS game as well with him. He played in Academy, and then during lock-in, when Cord didn't have his green card just yet, I played with
because everyone kind of right.
Because you could only have 2, I think it was, or 3, something like that. So I played. Yeah, he went from playing in Academy for like a week, and then I joined him for an LCS game. It was really fun. And keep in mind, by the way, I played Academy for like a month. I was like, I had like 1 or 2 weeks of like an official match. So like I had like maybe like 4 official matches before an LCS game on a role that I've been playing for a month. And I was like, oh god, what is happening?
Yeah, man, I forgot about that lock-in game. Did you guys win?
Yeah, we won.
I mean, TL was rolling at the start of that year, as I remember, absolutely. So yeah,
it was really fun. I mean, the coaching staff back then at the time, like Kyoto, or maybe a butcher the pronunciation. He was very understanding of like the position I was coming from, and he basically made sure that going into drafts I was able to get a really comfortable champion and be comfortable in the game. Obviously that was Akali because that's just what I played.
Yeah.
And then
the Bradley Akali games in 2022, even in the top lane, there were some clips in there for sure.
Might be bringing it back in the mid lane, 2024.
Hey, I mean, it's pretty good right now. I see a lot of players picking it up, so I would not be surprised. Not that you're trying to leak any strategies, obviously.
I'll play it all. You can't ban it all. Don't worry. Even if I leaked it, it didn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Let's jump to this year now. You've played with so many super talented players. whether it was from the team last year or from 2022 or even with Wildcard back then, a lot of your teammates have actually gotten that call to like be in the LCS. You know, you had
Mhm.
basically everybody on that 2022 team get a starting spot at some point over the last couple of years. You had APA in the mid lane from last year. Does that weigh on you at all in any way? As like, oh man, like all these people, like I'm learning so much. I'm with all these people. They're all getting called up, but you're still waiting for that opportunity, or does that just like kind of, I don't know, like increase your
Mm,
motivation to continue to play and win?
Um, weighing on me? No. I think Spawn did a really good job as a coach to instill responsibility in players. Um, and oh, I forgot like the other term. Um, it's not like feedback. It's like accountability. Accountability is
Ah,
is
okay.
the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I think he does a really good job at holding people accountable. And I think that like ultimately, if I were like a little better, I would have gotten a call up. So I don't really look back and be like, oh, like if I were a little better, because I personally don't like thinking about things that just weigh me down. I try to move past things. If my mindset as well as like if not but when, but like my mindset is always just like when I'm ready or like if I'm good enough, I'll go. And if I'm not good enough, I won't go. So, I think it's as simple as I wasn't good enough and that's fine. I like that doesn't really weigh me down at all because I'm still practicing, I'm still learning, right?
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough to still have time, I think, unless I'm delusional, and
No, you
we'll see.
definitely do.
But
Definitely do.
yeah. So I think that going into the future, like I'm still as motivated. Might be a different environment, might be a different team. It doesn't really matter to me. What matters is that I'm surrounding myself with people that are giving it their all, just like me, and I'm trying to carry over the principles that Spawn taught me.
All right, yeah. Were you planning on taking the split off kind of at the start of the off season, and was your plan to kind of be in Korea for a lot of the start of this year after being there? You were there for the Worlds run as well, right?
Yes, I
So
was.
was
So
were you planning on doing that, or did it kind of just happen naturally as the off season progressed?
Well, at last year's off season, yes, I was planning on going to Korea, just because I thought that it's just like the best time for boot camp to go over there. Went over there. I stayed a lot longer than I originally thought I was going to because I decided that I didn't perform as well as I maybe wanted to. So I wanted to put in like that extra work to try and like shape up my play for like the start of the year, and then this next start of the year came, and I had some NACL offers, but I just looked at some of them and I tried to get on TSG. I didn't manage to do that. I tried to get on like maybe like some other ones, and I didn't manage to get on them as well. And then I just thought that I could play in some of the other NLCL teams, or I could try and get Challenger again. And I really do feel like Challenger over there, like if you can maintain it, is like really high level of practice.
Yeah.
So I was like, I could just do that. I could try and keep bettering myself as a player, and then I'll just come back and we'll see what happens. So yeah, I definitely wasn't really planning to go to Korea the second time. It was mostly just I was looking at my offers and I decided that that would be the best course of action
Okay.
to me go to the LCS.
I noticed you. I heard you were doing like helping some of the qualifier players like positional coaching and stuff while you're still in Korea. What was that
Yeah.
experience like? Do you feel like now you're kind of passing the torch on as somebody who's like been in academy a couple of years and helping some of those players out? And yeah, just like kind of how was that experience? How has it helped you as a player yourself as well?
Quite frankly, I feel like when I was helping some of the players, and like the team in general, I felt like I was literally just repeating what Spawn said to me to them. Like I felt like a
Yeah.
actual just robot repeating what I had learned and just like saying it to them because it's just true, like
I
what
mean,
I
yeah,
learned. And
you're the
like
conduit now. You get to deliver that to the world.
yeah, so yeah, I mean it was really cool to see kind of like look at them how like I guess necessarily he looked at me. So I thought that was pretty cool, but yeah, I mean, I still have the desire to compete.
Yeah.
I thought that while I was in Korea and I wasn't necessarily like competing in the scene, helping in the scene is still a way to like keep me involved in like the competitive mindset.
Yeah.
To where even though I'm playing solo queue every day, I still have like the feeling of being in a competitive environment, so it doesn't like lose that kind of aspect.
Right, because it's a very different experience, I guess, like just grinding solo
Yeah.
queue every day versus
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
playing
yeah.
comp games. Let's talk about the boys real quick. You guys are a stacked
Okay.
team on CCG. Before we wrap things up, are you worried about like not having a ton of practice? How did you guys end up like coming together? It's just like a bunch of players that like we're like, hey, let's just go win this OQ together. Like if we just all come together, we're gonna win.
I'm not worried. I think we'll do really well in OQs, and it came together. It's kind of funny. I mean, like I said, I did used to play on a team with Trevor way back then. He reached out to me, he was like, "Yo, you trying to play OQs?" And I was like, "Can I even play in OQs? Like, aren't I gonna miss this like next NACL spot? Or like if I play in these OQs?" And he was like, "Nah, they'll end like right before like the next NACL is gonna like go on." And I was like, "Oh, so like I could play in it and kind of like show people that like my bootcamp effort."
Yeah.
And then like go from there. And he'd be like, yeah. And I was like, all right, I'm down. And then like going from there, we just like like Tony or Instinct, and like I'm friends with Instinct already. And he was like, oh, if you're playing, I'm down. And then Yukino, like I've been like mutual friends with him for like a little bit. Cause like if you're playing, I'm down. It's kind of just like,
It's
all
like
right,
it's like one of those movies. You go pick up the whole gang, and then you're rolling up to the qualifiers together now.
yeah. It's literally like, oh shit, like I'm down to do it. So yeah.
So if you guys win, you will be like the first seed in the promotion tournament. I think that's like the one of the only pathways you actually have because the points that CCG had in the first tournament weren't a lot. Is that kind of one option for you guys to be in the NACL, or is this kind of just an opportunity for you guys to practice? Like if you guys promoted, would it be like a good thing, like, oh, we're gonna stick together and ride this out, or are you still kind of using this as like a jumping off point?
So I am kind of using it as a jumping off point. I did tell like CCG like my plan was to kind of like compete and in OQs and kind of like prove that like I'm still going to be like very competitive as a player. And like don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound like arrogant or anything, but I think we're going to go to the OQs and just win anyways. So
Yeah.
Like
It's very possible.
to me, like I don't think we'll lose, and I don't mean to sound too arrogant. I just I just have a lot of confidence going in with my team, and like I told them, because they did mention like if we do just win first, would you like to stick with us? And the response I told them was, I want to make an LFT post. When I like if let's say we do win, and then I want to see what my offers are going into the like the next NACL, right? Because I do have to decide whether I'm playing mid or top. I still don't know. Like that's up for the future. That's up for how I do today, how I do tomorrow. So I'm gonna have to decide that, and then I'm gonna see what offers I get, and then I'll go from there. So I don't really have a definitive answer.
Yeah.
Like if I'm just using it for stepping stone, because I don't really know yet. It kind of depends how I do.
Well, assuming you guys win your first match and the things go kind of the way they're planned, your next week's matchup is actually against your old coach on Bethany Colomer over on Ole Miss now. I don't know if you knew that, but
he messaged me about it.
Are you excited to face off against him after some years apart?
Yeah. He told me, he was like, "You're really gonna go to Korea for like a few months just to come back and beat me in OQs," and then he like sent me a sad face. And I was like, yeah, sorry about that.
So nothing personal, but that's your prediction. You guys are going all the way. Gotcha.
Nothing personal, yeah.
Well, Bradley, I know we've been here for a while, so thank you very much for talking to me. Before we go, I have one final question. I guess it's kind of your opportunity to like kind of show yourself off to the world a little bit. If there's one thing that you want people to know about yourself that's maybe different from when the last time you played competitive, what would that be? Whether it's like from your last time at TL, like what do you think you've improved on? What do you think you've grown? What do you think the new Bradley in 2024 is going to look like?
That's a good question. I don't know. I've never. I'm gonna answer your question by telling you why I decided to rename to Bradley in a way. And it might seem a little off topic, but I'm not a very creative person. And when I was told there's someone else in the scene that was named Freeze, the 100 Thieves coach at the time, I was like, well, shit. Like now, what am I gonna do? What's my name gonna be? And simply, since I'm not a creative person, I decided that I just want people to know my name. So I just made it Bradley. So that's gonna be like my answer, I guess. I just wanted it to be known, so that I think it's like a lot more personal as well.
Yeah.
Like let's say like I do go further, and I think it's like really easy for fans to connect with you. Maybe that's like a little bit of code. I'm not sure, but you know, it just feels like a lot more of a genuine thing. Because nowadays in esports, like, or maybe not in esports, but like the league scene, like fans are like an integral part of like a player's like career and like an organization's career as well, right?
Yeah.
So like you hear it time and time again, but like people would be nowhere without like the people who support them and like the fans. So if anything, I just think that it helps kind of that aspect as well.
All right. So you're just gonna stay you, and you're gonna make that kind of speak for itself. I guess
Yep,
that's a
I'm gonna make
beautiful way
that
to cap
known.
things off, Bradley. You got a way with words, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're all gonna be rooting for you with CCG. Where can people find you on social media? I know you said you might be starting to stream a little bit more. Is that happening, or we're not sure?
Okay. So I did stream 2 games in Korea, but when I streamed, I would go into some team fights with like 90 frames. And I'm like, oh my god, this is just not it. If I'm gonna stream like this, I'm gonna get demoted to like masters. I was like GM at the time. I was like, oh my god, like this is not fun. Like I can't do that. But actually, here at the Bethany computers, the PCs are very like good. So I'm actually down to stream.
Okay.
If I hit like top like ranking and like the leaderboard and so I'm down to just like make my name like CCG Bradley or some shit and then just stream. But to answer your questions, Bradley with 2 Y's, LOL.
All right. Well, thank you, Bradley, very much again for talking to me, and best of luck for this weekend and all the rest of the qualifiers and beyond.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.